Would love for you to be a part of the conversation. WhatsApp number is 0809 440 981. You can also tweet at Smooth981. And we're streaming live on our YouTube channel as well. So you can catch the live stream, Smooth981. That's the YouTube channel. And you can also subscribe. Our analysts are in. It's AB Bozimo and Joseph Obari. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, President Zibby. Good morning, Joseph. I hope that your accents stay the same considering where you are located right now.
Okay. Good morning, AB. Good morning, President Zibby, and all listeners wherever you are. It's a great Friday again. My accent is not changing. I've not jackpot.
Well, this is a freshly pressed.
Is brought to you by FBN.
All right, so we're starting off with the headline coming from The Nation. Senate moves to make local government's monthly allocations public. AB?
Now, I am 100% in support of this move. As a matter of fact, it's not a new phenomenon. Many years ago, decades even, there was a minister in the Obasanjo government who is now the head of the World Trade Organization, Okonjo-Iweala, who used to publish on a monthly basis the allocation to the local governments and to the state governors, as well as I think to the federal. That was one of the most transparent times possible. You would argue that at that point, the nascent democracy was still relatively new, and so people were not actually paying attention. But I completely support this, especially with the recent local government ruling, because out of curiosity, I got up, went to Google, that's available for everybody, and asked what was the amount allocated to the local government in which I reside, Port Harcourt City. Google gave me some results. In the month of February or March 2023, a total sum of 709 million naira was allocated to this local government. I can tell you, I move around this local government. I don't perceive 1 million naira being put into what the local government should be doing. I have asked every listener to take it upon themselves to, and Joseph, correct me, to check Schedule 4 or so of the National Constitution, where you will find the responsibilities of the local government. It's not up to an A4 sheet of paper. Do it for yourself. It's to do with markets, schools, signage, drainage, sanitation. There are a few things. What I would argue is that the way each of us lives and operates in Nigeria is actually supposed to be guided by the local government, the look and feel of your life. How do your streets look? What kind of vegetation is there? Where and why do they flood or not, etc.? I'm not saying the local governments can be responsible for everything. No, indeed, state and federal government have a role. But at your fingertips, you ought to be able to say to your local government chairman, start in your ward, identify the ward head, as a group on your streets or a collective of streets, go and say, these are the challenges we seek attention with. It has to become a dialogue. But at the same time, with that local government autonomy, there should be a restructuring. Right now, I feel the federal government gets entirely too much. Over 50% of national revenues or whatever it's called. The federal government should get no more than 35% in my view. And the states and the local governments where the people actually engage should be moved higher in some kind of proportion. I may not be able to propose that, but certainly let everybody use their friend Google to ask the question, how much did my local government get on one side? Then take a mirror, put it in front of your face and ask yourself, do I know A, what the local government is supposed to do for me? B, do I know who is in charge of the local government of activities in my local government? And if not, look at the mirror and correct and upgrade yourself. I think it's only with that kind of information at your fingertips we can request, and demand more from the local government level of authority.
All right, thank you, AB, for that. And let's move on to the next headline. And this is coming from Punch. Customs intercept 11.2 billion naira illegally imported drugs in River State. Joseph? All right.
Joseph?
Did Joseph have a blackout? I
It
mean, I don't.
looks, it seems like it.
Right. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Well, he'll
So
come back to join us.
I believe certainly.
Let's move on to another headline. And this one is coming from Punch. INEC can conduct sanitized local government polls. And this is according to Yakubu.
You know, I have often felt when I look at the sums of money that have been devoted and dedicated to INEC over the time that it's not a very good use of money in Nigeria. And I say that because I'm convinced, having seen the examples from places like the Nigerian Bar Association and from, say, my association, Nigerian Institute of Architects, that there are much better, much more credible ways to carry out elections. I recognize that not everybody has a smartphone. However, most people at this point have access to an ATM card or even a POS. It is much better use of money, in my view, to select 20 Nigerian staffed and based IT companies to develop software that will make our electoral system better and make sure that their solutions are rolled out in the country that give us a better sense of the fact that our votes count. Hearing from Yakubu, who I personally feel did not do a fantastic job in the last election, who has not yet explained to me what glitch means. Now, glitch means I could be on this line and my connection to you could stop. That's a glitch, but I'll be able to explain to you exactly what happened. Or you, like what happened just now, you could say this is what happened. We still don't know what the glitch was in the presidential election, but I'm setting that aside. INEC is saying that they can do the LG polls. Of course they can. But what would be different? Right now, people complain about how the governors seem to have an overweening impact on the local government elections. Somebody has an impact. In that case, are we saying that the president, too, has an overwhelming impact on national elections? You have to have a level of trust and believe that people properly motivated and equipped will conduct themselves appropriately in elections without glitches. So he is asking for that. Does that mean he wants a higher budget? In my view, I repeat, the money already voted to INEC was not well spent. I believe technology should be pursued in improving our elections, whether INEC carries it out or state electoral committees carry out, or this proposal by the National Assembly for a local government. I feel we're trying to cut down bureaucracy and money spent. I think that's a misplacement of priority by the National Assembly, that whole local government election authority. 734 little mini bureaucracies is a waste of resources, Nigerian resources.
All right, let's look at a few messages coming. Joseph, did you want to add something?
Yeah. Sorry, I had some glitches
glitch.
here, as he said.
Glitch.
You know, so I want to just comment on the Senate thing. The move to make local governments more transparent and all that. I will only say that the Senate also should make its own account finances transparent. We like to know how much they are getting. It's not enough to say, oh, it's local government, they should be transparent. We want to know about the transparency of the Senate and the National Assembly, just as well as they are interested in transparency at local government level. They should make themselves also very transparent. And on INEC, AB has said a lot of what I would intend to say, except that I think that I support him completely that it's a misplaced priority for INEC to think that they can conduct election the way they have been doing. Because the last election left us with trust deficit as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, okay, you have the capacity, but I feel sad that they are whittling the division between the different levels of government. We are completely eroding it. So we should be able to find ways of letting states do what they should do, and the law should be to ensure that they are able to do it without hurting the processes. If governors are interfering with local government, how can we fix that problem? Not to superimpose bureaucracies on top of what exists currently.
All right, thank you, Joseph. Let's look at some messages coming through. This one is from Adeboyega, and he says, good move by the Senate to publish the local government allocations. They should also use the same energy to publish their own total take-home pay.
Exactly.
Having said that, What happens afterwards? Has any local government chairperson been charged or asked to give accounts after his or her tenure expired? No. Tonye says the Senate should also make their salaries public. Too much information is coded in Nigeria. Oluwaseyi says making public the monthly allocations to the local government from the federal government will be a game changer at this point in Nigeria. People will be able to question their local government officials who are within reach. And as an aside, a BBC documentary exposed a local government area in Bayelsa back in the early noughties where the chairman and councillors were spending more than 90% on their welfare. Let's move on to the next headline, and this one comes from Punch. Customs intercepts 11.2 billion naira illegally imported drugs in Rivers. Joseph?
Yeah, this is a very worrisome one, even though it's a very positive thing that they were able to make seizures. But the fact that there are Nigerians who are bent on destroying the lives of young people in this country is very disheartening. But what comes across to me is the question mark over all of this. Just a few weeks ago, the same customs in that same area and on there, that same port, had seized the consignment of illegal firearms, drugs, and other items worth 18 billion naira that came from Turkey. Look, now we are talking about drug importation. Nobody, even in this story, nobody mentioned that the individuals who imported the first consignment that was seized a few weeks ago have been arrested. It is the same customs officers that are giving us information about seizure made. The previous seizure they made, they have not told us who was responsible. So there is something that has made that port attractive. And usually how this thing works is that you have a group of individuals, corrupt officers, who these people have identified and say, Chief, send these things through this port. Send it through this port. That's what on there. Who knows how much might have passed through that port that were never declared, that were never seen. And these seizures came after their Comptroller General visited them and kind of gingered them into action. So it might have got intelligence that things are passing through there. Now, it's curious that you make a seizure worth 18 billion naira, and with the persons behind such importation are ghosts. In fact, that is one of the most documented transactions you can have. Importation and exportation. Because you have people who at different points are filling forms, are signing documents, they have addresses, they have phone numbers. How come the custom is not telling us who imported 18 billion naira worth of contraband into Nigeria weeks after they seized the consignment? And even this very consignment, the documents for clearing that consignment contains names of people. Why are they keeping silent over those things? First of all, okay, so nobody's been arrested, nobody's been tried, it's been arraigned in court, nothing. It's silence. The story, we celebrate, we make seizures, and then that's it. Nobody answers for it. Nobody. I find that very, very, very disheartening. I mean, I don't understand how. And unfortunately, this address was made to journalists. And as a person in media communication, I feel very embarrassed what's going on in the industry. I can't imagine though in our day that you invite us and give us briefing and you are not asking questions. Where are the people who are behind this? So they give you just go to the press conference, they give you, they were celebrating this with Messenger, it was the NDLA and us, and you're not asking any critical questions, and you come and publish the story. It's very shocking. It's very shocking. And any journalist who is listening to me should really, you guys have to wake up. You have to wake up because you're supposed to have the conscience of the people, and you're supposed to ask critical questions. But we see every time, even the previous story, one of the stories we had before, you see gaps in the media activities, what journalists are doing. I feel this is very embarrassing.
All right, AV, do you want to add something?
Joseph has said it all. You say you do a seizure. I am very aware of the way, one of my favorite shows is how it's made. So you can see when bottles of drugs are being manufactured, they roll through a conveyor belt, the sticker is put on them, etc. At no point in those shows do you see the bottles getting up, walking across the factory ground, entering a bus to a container, sealing themselves in, loading themselves onto a ship, coming to Nigeria and jumping off the boat. Somebody or some people are involved. For you to give me a story without context of those involved is completely empty on the part of the Nigeria Customs Service. And the journalists, too, have a responsibility to ask those questions.
All right, let's look at some of the messages that we have coming through. This is from Idima Puza, and he says, Nigerians are smart. Even if we opt for elections, some would still find ways of manipulating the results.
Let's
JP
have it
says,
first. Let's have it first.
JP says the Senate as often is chasing shadows. Do we have transparency anywhere in government or her legislative arms? Why local governments alone? Budget has something that shows local government allocation. Can we do this top to bottom? Deji says custom interception has become a slogan. Where are the interceptees, those behind the illegal drugs? Name and publish their faces, not just announce it that you have intercepted anything. After the announcement, life goes on. So it's basically headlines. Fabian says, kudos to customs, but I'd like to hear of a more thorough investigation to get the kingpins and the final conclusion. Now, just to backtrack off what Fabian has said, it wasn't the news yesterday. A notorious drug kingpin who evaded arrest and been out and about for a few years has actually been apprehended. So I guess that is some kind of good news considering he was involved in this disturbing trade that find its way into Nigeria and affects so many people, young and old. Well, let's move on to the next headline, and this one comes from Vanguard. 5 die, others injured in Lagos building collapse. AB?
You know, we've had too many stories of buildings collapsing. This happened in our Rowo Jobe estate in Maryland. My familiarity with Maryland, it's relatively highland, you know, nearer to Ikeja, but there is that area that's underneath the bridge. I don't know where this street is, but the fact is 5 individuals who are supposed to be site workers, maybe who were sleeping overnight on the site, are dead. And these are always avoidable incidents. Building collapse doesn't just happen. It's when a number of steps and processes go wrong. Could be from the building design, the way the building is put together, improper props of the structural elements, improper construction of the structural elements, wrong materials used, and wrong procedures. Ultimately, the building physical collapse is just the end product of many steps that went wrong. And there are many people who are supposed to be involved. There are regulatory authorities, there are professionals involved, and of course, there are the contractor, even if it's direct work. So it's important to get to the root cause of this and begin to understand and plot an analysis of how are these things going wrong and be determined to stop them. The government has a major role in, first of all, punishing those involved if they are still alive, and also taking preventive measures to make sure that only trained professionals are involved in the construction industry. I always say, because everybody is inside a building, people all feel that construction is an all-comers affair. Just because you can procure materials does not mean you have the technical knowledge to put up a building. There are registered professionals called builders who are supposed to be doing building, and architects and other professionals who do our own part in making sure the built environment is safe. I mourn these 5 people. They were doing their best to earn a living for themselves and their families. Today, their families wake up in despair, and God knows what happens to the rest of their family lives. But government has a role to play. When you see the spate of continuous collapse, it means that government is leaving a gap. Government has a role to play. Whether it's the 21 odd story that collapsed in Ikoyi, or this maybe duplex that collapses in Maryland, government has a role to play that to ensure that only professionals are involved. Let me tell you why. As an architect, if a building I'm involved in collapses, I have a license that the government can seize. So I have skin in the game, and I thus would make sure that I prevent that from happening. I'm not just going to lie on the ground and say, I beg, Edge, sorry. No, I have something I can lose. That's why it is very important to use people like me, other professionals, structural engineers, mechanical and electrical engineers, who will make sure that you don't just put the pipes here and there. They know that if you put the pipe through a certain place, you can compromise the building. It's not good enough. We cannot keep hearing these stories every day, and government essentially folds its hands. Regulate the building environment, and make sure you pass proper building codes from the National Assembly down to the State House of Assembly. We don't have a building code we're using in Nigeria. Can you imagine that? We are trained, we use a lot of foreign building codes and we adapt them to Nigeria, but we need to have a standard here that we can be punished against.
All right, still
Well,
listening.
I just
Okay.
want to make a contribution, and again, it still talks about the media. I read this story and I don't see when this happened. That's shocking. In journalism, you're taught the basic thing in writing a story is the 5 W's and H. When, where, how, who, what, 5 W's. So you have a story from paragraph 1 to the end. There's no mention of when this incident happened. He said it happened at 3:58 a.m. of which day?
That's what my father would always say. My father would ask the question, when?
When did it happen? When?
The print journalists are not going to like both of you right now.
No, it's alarming. What's going
ridiculous.
on is alarming.
All right, you're still listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Do stay with us. There we've got some more headlines. I see your messages coming through. We'll take them shortly. Oh, wow. I saw that and I'm like, okay, there is a time. Since it was published this morning,
No,
I'm going to say, okay.
Zibby, it's not enough.
It's an assumption, but it may not be correct.
Absolutely. It may not be correct, because I actually looked through and I'm like, okay, 3:18 a.m. What day?
Yeah.
When I was a child, my father would, when you're doing math, you just think you have solved the problem to the end and you put the answer 15. He would just put an X and put goats, as in if it's not 15 meters or 15,
Oh.
15, he would just put goats
specific.
with it. So that taught me to be very specific, and especially in science, where you can have meters per second, meter per second squared. You need to know the units.
In my house, if you come to me and say, I need money, I will just keep quiet.
Okay.
You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. We're looking at the news stories making the headlines. And we want to get your thoughts as well, so please keep them coming via WhatsApp 0809 440 981. And you can also post a comment on the live stream up on our YouTube channel. It's Smooth 981. And let's see, I've got a message coming through via YouTube. Babafemi says, don't only publish the LG's allocations, LG should revert with a detailed account and verifiable utilization reports of the received funds for all to see. Effective communication is a two-way thing. All right, next headline comes from a Vanguard. IGP petition over fatal shooting of 2 policemen in Delta. Joseph?
Well, honestly, it's very, very sad that this kind of thing is happening. That people would begin to attack law enforcement personnel, should kill them and all that. It's sad. It's very sad. So, what are we doing to protect our law enforcement officers? Or these are people who already don't have very good welfare. I don't think their lives are insured. And then, of course, people attack them, should kill them, and then nothing happens at the end of the day. So the IGP nobody should be petitioning the IG to investigate how their men get killed, for goodness sake. It should not be. It should be that the police on its own will investigate and bring those who are, in fact, in other parts of the world, you kill the cop, that's most of the most grievous mistakes you can make as a criminal, because they come after you with all their things arsenal at their disposal. So the police should ask themselves questions. and then be able to unravel whatever happened and bring those who are behind it to justice. I think that because this is not a recent incident, some story, we've taken this story before. Some policemen were killed in some forest somewhere and all that. But I think it's because the action from the police is not happening. And that's why the families and the people are having to petition the IG that something has not been done the way it should be done. And that's a really serious cause for concern, you know.
Indeed. All right, let's look at some messages. And this one is from Anthony. Anthony says, very soon the nationwide protest will translate into more of local government protests. With this autonomy granted, much responsibility has been shifted to the grassroots. And let's move on to the next headline coming from The Nation. FHA, which is the Federal Housing Authority, building 5,000 houses. AB? All right, it seems like another glitch has gotten AV off the call. But Amy, please do. Okay, Amy is back, and that was a very speedy resolution. You're muted, Amy.
This was clearly the glitch out of my control. It just went off and came back on, and I'm glad to be back very quickly. FHA building 50,000 houses across the nation. That's fine. This was said by the Executive Director of Projects Implementation of the FHA in Birmingham City in Britain. And, you know, he's telling newly inaugurated executives of the APC UK chapter that they are building these houses. The key sentence I heard there that's intriguing to me said that there is an area in each of these estates that's carved out for those in diaspora. I'm always curious when I hear this. It's nice to have your little area in diaspora. Presumably, there's going to be a portion of the road you will take to and from that estate that is also carved up for diaspora. Then there's a part of the market that's also for diaspora, and so on and so forth. Listen, those are specious selling points. In my view, the goal, apart from building proper houses and all that, should be make sure that the entire country is upgraded to the level that you'd consider to be for quote unquote diaspora. Because diaspora people live, eat, and breathe like the rest of the people. Just because you come back to your country doesn't make you special in any way. You should be able to live in a house that any other Nigerian should be able to live in. So I'm happy to hear about this. More houses, more options for people, more accommodation, because we do need housing. We have a deficit. But I mean, the selling point he was trying to do for me was quite unnecessary. Just build the houses. Those who can afford them will afford them, both here and abroad. I know he was speaking to them in diaspora. He was thinking that that's the selling point. But when I was in diaspora, I always questioned such statements. Statements is a polite word, so I'll leave it there.
All right, let's look at some messages. Fabian says, may the souls of those who lost their lives rest in peace. All lives are important, and the government plus stakeholders need to take a more proactive approach to ensure safety standards, not just in buildings, but also for road constructions as well. And Ajayi says, the federal government has no business building houses. It's the job of the local governments. And Oluwaseyi says the smuggling of fake or hard drugs is one small part of the whole issue. Weapons, which have become the bane, fueling kidnappings and killings in the country as well. From the news we've been getting, the officers of the Nigerian outfit responsible for stopping these things may also play a huge part in getting them in. And let's see, Ibrahim. Okay, Ibrahim, your message is waiting. Deji says, why creating a space for people living in diaspora? It's not straightforward. They know what they were doing. And before you close your eyes and open your eyes, that space is gone. Dakbor says, complacency and being nonchalant, as long as it doesn't affect our personal finances, is the order of the day in Nigeria. Making a striking division between legality and morality should be adhered to. The people importing contraband and hard drugs are just simply destroying the future of successive generations. Discriminating about dwelling places for locals and diaspora locals and diaspora is pathetic. Arise and wake up, Africa. Joseph Meni says the Nigerian customs should stop all the shenanigans. They always tell us various interceptions, but who are the culprits? Importations are well documented. There is a conspiracy somewhere. We are out of time. I can't take any more messages, but thank you for listening. Thanks for sending your messages in, and special thanks to our analysts as well, Joseph Obari and AB Bozimo, for being with us this morning.
Thank you,
Thank you,
President
Zibby.
Zibby, and thank you, listeners, for a wonderful show. It's always been very interactive. We love what you're doing, listeners, and let's keep it going. Thanks.
Have a great weekend. Happy Friday. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend ahead.
All right. That is it for Freshly Pressed this morning. Do stay with us. There is a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.